Hello and welcome to the next webinar in 12D's training webinar series. My name is Lisa Stewart and I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator here at 12D Solutions. 12D's training webinars showcase common industry challenges, taking a close look at industry best practices and how these can be implemented using 12D products. The aim of these webinars is to upskill 12D users and broaden their understanding of the capabilities of 12D products. We run these webinars regularly and record them for posting through our website and on YouTube. The previous webinars from this training series, as well as the webinars from our Industry Solutions series, are all available on our YouTube channels if you missed those. During this presentation, you'll be able to type your questions along the way, as shown on the screen, and we'll answer as many as possible throughout the webinar. At the end, I'll also send through your questions to the presenter for his insights. Today's webinar will be presented by Alistair McCrudden, who first started using 12D Model, or rather 4D Model as it was known then, in 1996. From 1997 he ran 12D training courses through a reseller, and then in 1998 he commenced contracting directly to 12D, and he's run our WA support and training ever since. Whilst Peter Tainton of 12D Queensland has previously done some great presentations on the lot pads options, as is always the case with 12D Model, the tools can be used in ways other than they were originally intended. In this webinar, we'll look at some varying ideas to perhaps spur some thought on possible uses. We'll be looking at the lot pads create, the lot pads edit, dynamic pad and dynamic pad pond options. We'll also see some ideas on dynamically floating a building pad up and down to get a balance of Earthworks quantities, grading a parking lot for drainage by selecting maximum and minimum grades to a gully via the level grade option, creating a plane at a selected grade via the surface grading option, and dynamically floating a set of ponds and a surrounding edge platform as one entity up and down to get a balance of Earthworks quantities. Over to you, Alistair.
Thanks for that, Lisa. In training, we always say that 12D is just a toolbox, and you're going to select whatever tool you need for the job. Sometimes it might be the jeweler's screwdriver, or sometimes it might be the sledgehammer to do whatever job you need to do. The sessions that I'm going to be doing here this morning, really not showing any of the new tools. They've been in there since, who knows what, probably version 9, maybe even earlier. They're not always taught necessarily in basic training. You might get some of them, but not all of them. We're looking at the pads options today. We have lots of different variations in there. Peter Tainton in the past has done a few very good videos on it. So what I'm going to do today is to show you maybe some slightly different ideas on how to use some of those tools. So what I've got here is my contours of my existing ground model running down here, and then I've set a rectangle for a building pad, which at the moment is totally flat. The height of that is set at this green contours height. So the idea is that everything on this side of the rectangle will be in cut and everything on this side will be in fill. And we're then going to go through and run a couple of different options with the pads. Now the first thing I'm going to do is show you that if I just come up here, I've got my pads toolbar here. That's that one there, and of course you can also access those from the design down to pads, and those give you the same options there. So I'm just going to concentrate on using the toolbars up here, and as I've already got a string in here that is my building pad, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go and edit it, which will then set a style onto that with colors and give us text and things. So purely by coming in here using the pick option and then picking on my pad string like that and accepting it. So now you can see that it's given me the levels on the corners of each of them, and at that moment that pad is totally flat. So I'll finish that pad just for the moment because that's a macro and it would lock the string. If I then suddenly decided that I didn't want this to be flat, but I wanted to then go and have a crest across here, then purely by coming in and editing my string, I can go in and put in a between on this side here, and then I'll just go and use one of my CAD snaps. I'll go and use the midpoint between the start of the string here and that point on that string there, and that's going to give me a new point in there. I'll do the same on this side, so I'll come over here and I'll go and pick somewhere over there. Then I'll come back in and use my midpoint again from this point here to that point there. So you can see now that I've got a new point in the middle of each of those. Okay, so now we'll go back to editing our pad again, and we're going to have a play with a couple of things here. First of all, on the grading side of things, we will come back in a moment and make this a little crest through here. I thought we might just start off with the surface grading. To make this a little bit easier to see what's going on, I'm just going to go and remove my contours, and then we're going to do some surface grading here. So what this will enable me to do is when I go and pick this point here, I'm going to make this the high point, and I'm going to grade the whole of this pad so that it runs through down to that point there. So we'll have a sloping pad that goes from the top point up here, sloping all the way down to here, and it'll be a plane running across there, and we'll slope that down at say 1 and minus 200. Drag out the circle to cover the extent of everything that we want to change, and that's now gone and produced this pad for us. Now just to show you what's going on here, I do actually have a tin already made which was flat, so I'll just go in and add that tin in. That was called tin pad only, and at the moment that is totally flat. If I then go through and just quickly rerun the triangulation on that, so I'll re-triangulate pad only, and then just go and toggle on my tin contours here. You can see that that's now sloping down through there, and again if we just go and maybe add on our tin flow arrows, there we can see that the whole of that pad is floating down through to there. I'll go back now and put the pad so that the entire pad is level again. Make it back to 65 and re-triangulate that. So that's going to be flat. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and grade the edges here so that we keep the corners at 65 and grade up towards the center. So by picking with direction on the edge of the string, that says that I'm going to change the grading, not the height, and I'll go and put that in at say 1 in 50. So now I've got a 1 in 50 each way there. Grab this one, pull it up there, and we'll go 1 in 50 there as well. So now we've got a crest up here. To re-triangulate that again, and you can see now that we've got the fall going either direction there. So that's given us the pad edit option. We're now going to go in and have a look at a very old macro, which is the dynamic pad. So I'll just put my contours back on again, and we'll have a look at this dynamic pad. What this will do for us is it's going to go and we'll give it a cut slope and a fill slope in there, and we'll ask it to go and interface back down to the ground model at whatever interval. This will then also go and produce a tin of the pad with the interface, and it'll also give us volumes for that. So we're going to have this happen in our view called building pad. We'll go and give it a cut slope. We'll make them fairly steep just because it's a steep bit of ground. So we'll make a cut slope of 1 and 1.5, fill slope of 1 and 2. We'll cut a section every 5 meters along the string, searching for 100 meters before it decides that it's not going to find the ground and throw in the towel. If the pad was drawn as this one was in a clockwise direction, we want to go and search on the left hand side of the string. If we'd gone in an anti-clockwise direction, we would have chosen the right hand side. So we'll go to the left. By the way, if you get it wrong, this will enable you to come back in again and just change it to the opposite, whether you've chosen left or right, or you can choose the opposite. We're going to go and interface that back down to our tin survey, and we'll put a model for the interface in here, so we'll call it build pad interface, and we'll give it a new tin name. It'll be build pad. We select the string that we want to go and interface from, which is that one there, and process that. So what that's done is that's gone through and done the Earthworks for me. I'll just go and toggle off my tin contours through there, and probably we'll leave the slope lines on. You can see what's happening in there, that it's actually gone through and it's sloping down here and sloping down that way. Switch them off now so we've seen them. And there's our triangulation. So what that's done down in the bottom half of the panel here is that's gone and given me my volumes. And what I'm going to do is we're now going to go and change the height on that original string that we chose, which was the edge of the building pad. Now you can see there that we've got too much cut and not enough fill. So I'm going to go and pop that up by, say, 2 meters. And I'll hit process again. That'll work it out. That's made it better. I'll give it another go at 2 meters. That's getting close. I might just step that down to 1 meter now and hit process again. So as I said, each time this is lifting that pad by a certain amount, and I might be happy with that. Let's see what happens if I go to 0.05 and process that. I've actually gone too far on that, so change that back to a -0.5. Process again, and there we are. I've got about 174 cubes of dirt left over from my cut to my fill, so that gives us a little small excess which we'd probably want. One of the other things that we can do in here at the same time, if we wanted to, we can go and translate this as well. So if I was to come into here, I can then float that around, and you can see that that's working that out on the fly to wherever I want it to go. So some pretty powerful tools. In reality, I think I've only ever done this translate once on a real job, but it's a pretty powerful tool. So I've put that back into there, and we're back to where we were. So that's then gone and shown us our dynamic pad. A couple of other things we'll have a look at then before we move on. We will go and just draw in a string down here. So I'm going to go and put in a line string and randomly go and decide to go from, I'll just snap to existing strings in here. And we'll just go through down to there. That's just a simple string that I've gone and created, a superstring. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in back into the edit a pad option, and you'll see that as soon as I go in and pick that string, it's gone and given me the levels on each of the vertices along there, and it's given me the grades in between them. So I can, if I so wish, at this stage go in and change the text, etc. Over here, the levels here, I might decide to go and change them. So I'll keep them the same size, but what I'll do is I'll put the offset in there, and I'll go and make the offset 10. That will, of course, move the text further away from the string. So there we are, you can see it's no longer touching that. And then of course I could also go in and change the grade text if I so wished. I probably won't bother doing it. I'll just show you though that I could go in here, change the color of it, change the size, change the offset. If I go and make that, I could make that -5 or something like that, it would be further away from the string. So that was one way we could go and put in a string there. Again, of course, I could go and change the levels or the grades on any one of those if I so wish to get a drain string running along through there. We could do similar things to that, of course, purely by using the straightforward leader options that are in here under the CADs. So we could go into here and we could go down and get a string grade as a 1 in or as a percentage. I'll just go with the 1 in. Come into here, go and pick the string at that point there, drag it out over here and select that, and that gives me the grade in there of 1 in 23.38. So you can see that that's matching what was in there. Similarly, we could go into here from our CAD leader and we could go and get the string Z and go and pick, say, the vertex on that one, pull it out over here, select that, and there's our 40. So that's matching up to those. That's just two different ways of doing a very, very similar thing. As I said to you in the beginning, the 12D is just a big toolbox, and whereas I said we could use a jeweler's screwdriver or a sledgehammer, in this case it's probably a little bit more similar to choosing a crescent spanner or a socket spanner. They can give us the same result, just in slightly different ways. Okay, so we'll move on now to another way that I like to use this grading tool, and what we'll be doing there is we're going to go and have a look at a parking lot. So if I come across here and just give you a perspective view of a parking lot that I've done, so I've basically put in an alignment string around the edge here with a little template coming off there to produce my cut and fill, and then I've got some alignment strings through the middle here for my islands. The idea here is that we would then probably want to go and put in some gullies. So there's my view showing the alignment string around the outer edge and my islands. Then the idea here is that we would probably want to go and put in some gullies here and figure out what drainage we wanted to put in there so that we would get a suitable level for each of these gullies. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert some new strings. So I'm going to look just at this portion down here, and I'll go and put in a string which is going to go from here, running out approximately to position near the gully there. I'll then go and make another string, which is going to go from this point here out to near the gully again. A third one from up here, somewhere on the curve, about there will do. Bring that into close to the gully again. And then I'll do a fourth string in a similar manner from that point there. Now obviously I could be slightly more accurate in the way I'm picking those, but for the situation here with the demo, that'll work fine. Out to that point there. So now that I've got those four strings there, I can then go back in and grade them in a similar way to what we've done in the past, by bringing up my panel, picking each of these strings, of course this could also have been done by a model, but I do actually have other strings in here that are not shown just at the moment, so that's why I haven't chosen the model. And I've also got my text switched off at the moment, so I'll just go and put my string text back on. You can see that at the moment these four in the middle here have a null height on them. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and grade those strings. I'll come into here and go and grade these. I'll start off with one of them at, say, a 1 in minus 100. I'll set this one here to a 1 in minus 50. So what I'm doing here is I'm setting some extremes that I would be happy to have on these. And again, I'll go minus 100 on that one, and then minus 50 on that one. So when I go in there and have a look at this, I'll just toggle my Z values for that particular model on. We can see in here now, a little bit easier than those bits of text there, that we've got a 36.9, 36.7, 37, 36.7. So we could then say, all right, if we're going to go through and grade these through to a desired level, we know what our levels are for a 1 in 100 and for a 1 in 50, and we can then make some informed idea of what height we could set those to. So I'm going to go and put those into a 36.7. So using my level and grade, come into here, choose the first one there, and I'll set that to 36.7. Onto the next one with a 36.7. Third one, 36.7. Fourth one, 36.7. Those are all now at the same height. And you can also see, if I zoom out just a little bit here, you can see that we've now got grades in there that are approximating the 1 in 50 that we wanted, some a little bit steeper, some a little bit flatter, but they're all pretty much where we would want them to be. I'm now going to go and switch on a model that I have some other strings similar to that. They haven't been graded, but just to give you an idea of where we would be going with this. So the model that I want is going to be my test gully levels. And you can see the sort of thing that we would do through there. Now these ones here don't have any levels on them. But the idea is then that now that we have those, I might just switch that string text off again, just make it a bit easier to see what's going on. Those are our controlling strings. So the next thing that we're going to do then is to go and create a tin. I already have one in the background which excludes those levels. I'll go and edit my tin using a layout input, and all I need to do now is just go and add that one model in there, re-triangulate that, go and add the tin itself, and you can see that what we've done there is we've gone and graded these down to the low point of the gully there. So now we can finish off our tin panel. We then flick back over to our perspective view here, and just if I toggle off the shading there for a minute, you can see that there's our car park with that set of bays in there that have been graded down to there as a first pass on that parking side. Obviously that would then be repeated for each of the other cells in here, and you might decide to put in a few contours once you've got that, which would then put a bit of smoothing in there instead of being the hard edges that we've got there. So that just gives you another idea of how you might be able to use the pads tool to help you doing individual grading. So now I'd like to move on to show you a job that I've based on a real job that I produced. This was basically creating a cycle path, but it was actually running up an embankment across the underside of a bridge abutment and then back down the other side, and they wanted to remove the dirt that was in this area here and put it into a single grading of, I think it was a 1 or 2% crossfall this way, so rising from, as if the path went straight through there, rising up to the base of the job here. So what I've got here is an alignment string which climbs up the hill. If we go across to the long section there, you can see that what we've done is we've got this cycleway that's matching the ground here, rises up there. I'll put those two views side by side so you can just see what's going on. So you can see here that as I run along here, I'm climbing up the hill got it through a couple of little cuts and gullies and what have you there, and then back down to the natural surface here. Here's a view that's got the path itself as it's been first produced, and that in this case here it has just been interfaced back to the existing ground, and we've got areas of fill, areas of cut, and so on and so forth. In the perspective view, again we can see cutting along this edge here, fill over there, cutting down and through there. So what we want to do with this job is to actually end up taking all of this dirt out of the inside here and then grading from a straight line across here back up into there at 2%, and then we'll end up eventually having a retaining wall. So in the cross section here, we at the moment are just interfacing back to there, but eventually we will be bringing this down through to here and then out to there with a 1% crossfall. So that's the basis of the design that we're wanting through here. Now what I've got is some path strings, which this is a copy of the edge string running through on my design. Lying directly underneath that string there. So I'll just switch that model off again. As I said, this is just a string that I've produced running along that edge, so it's a copy of the string and I've just clipped it off. I've then gone and put in a couple of extra levels out here that I wish to achieve at the edges of my design. So I'm now just going to go and edit this string that I've got here, and I'm just going to go and append a couple of new parts to it. I'll go from the end of that one there, the last vertex, come down to here. I've got a point just at the corner there that I can snap to. That's the position I wanted to go to. Come across over to here. The idea is that I'm just giving the edge out to the side of the path, and then I'll just go into here and close the string off. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to go through and produce my levels on here and grade the string out using the lot pads options. So first of all, by coming in here and picking the string, it will of course immediately give me my usual breakup of colors. Those colors, by the way, if we just zoom in and see the different colors along here, the colors are merely showing me where there's a change in grade. So you can see through here it's graduated, and each time there's a slight change, it's getting a different color. The colors don't mean anything per se, but they are just showing me that there's a change of something or other. Now the points that I've added in here are actually basically at a null height, so I need to go in to my grading and I'll go and change the level on this point here. From my little leader there, and instead of that being null, I want that to be 23.871, and at the other end here I want this one to become 22.847. Pop back and have a look at our perspective view, and if I then just toggle the shading off, at present you can see my string goes across the front here, but then it comes back up and it matches exactly as we knew it would. It's matched exactly back into the path through there. So now by going back to my path string here and then coming in and using the same option that I used earlier on when I did the grading, so that I had a plane across the lot pad in the very first portion that we were doing here, I'm going to go and use the surface grading. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come down and randomly choose this bottom corner down here on my string, drag out in this direction. So this is the way I'm wanting it to grade. That's the direction it's going to grade in, out to there. It says what do I want to go at? I'm going to rise from there at 1 in 100. And then I just pull out my circle to encompass the whole string. And that will have run through and regraded that string for me. So if we pop back to our perspective view now, we can see that this string is now following along, and you can see it running below the other data down here, and that in a moment is going to be the base of our retaining wall, and that means that all of this dirt in here will be removed, and we'll have the 1% grade running right the way up there. So now we can finish that panel off. We'll go to our tins, edit an existing tin. I'll just rerun it here. The tin that we're looking at is the base of path retaining wall, which has got just that one string in there, and I'll re-triangulate that, go and add that tin to the view, and you can see in there that what that's done is it's gone and triangulated a plane through there that extends beyond the left edge of the path, so that in a moment when we go and rerun our MTF and tell it to find this tin here, it'll actually go down and it'll land somewhere on the tin. Okay, so now that we've got the tin there, we'll go and run the MTF again. Now, as I said, the MTF initially was done so that the interface happened back to the existing ground survey tin that we've got in here. I've already got a whole lot of modifiers in here that we can go through just to save time for the demo, and I've just made them inactive so they're not running at the moment. So the first thing is I'll go back in and switch this one on. That is to go and extend the left edge of the path retaining wall down until it hits this tin through here. So I'll go and apply that. That has worked, but at the moment we've still got a little bit of trickiness going on here. It has pulled it down, but then we need to remove those final links. I'll switch all three of these on in one go now. So we're going to remove the final link so that it doesn't go back to find the ground. We're going to adjust the batter start and end points just at the very beginning and end of that, just so that it ties in nicely. And we'll go and apply that. Redraw on that will show us that we've now got this coming down through to the edge of that path down there. The last thing I'm going to do then now with this is to go and rerun my super tin. So I have a layout panel for that, and all I'm going to do is to come into here, switch that base of the path retaining wall, update that, and go and toggle on my shading. And you can see that this has now gone and interfaced through there, back down to the ground on this side at the 1% rise through here. Got a couple of saved views just to show you, so we'll just finish those two panels off so we just get our full screen back. And I've just got a couple of views in here that we can just go and have a quick look at. So we'll go to the path detail. There you can see this is coming down. I've got a 100mm step up on the top of the retaining wall on this side. Comes across our path, retaining wall down to there. Another view over here, which is saved, which is path detail 2, which just gives us the other end. And you can see that that's gone and calculated that all through us. So again, another use for the LotPad's edit tools. Now, as I've said a couple of times in this session, we are using the LotPad tools, and the title of that was thinking outside the box. So sure, there are other ways we could have gone about doing this work. There's always more than one way to do work in 12D. You may well have gone and decided to put in and grade a string independently. This is just a very simple method that I've used in the past with good effect, and just giving you the ideas of what you might be able to do. So I'll now move on to the last portion of this session, and that is going to be using the tool up here, which is the dynamic pad pond option. So we'll pop across over here to our pond design. And what I've got here is a set of drying ponds, which are independently designed as a lower set here, a central set here, and an upper set there. If we just pop across to the perspective view, you can see the sort of thing that's happening. So the idea is with these drying ponds that they have a specific height between each of them, and treated water will go into them, sediment will drop out, and they'll be each moved down each time, getting finer and finer water with the removal of any of the mud or sediments of any form or the other. So all of these strings here, the orange strings and the yellow off yellow string, are all in one model, and we will want all of those strings in that model to move up and down with the same relationship to one another. I've then also got a brown string out the edge here, which is going to be the string that will be chosen for the actual interface of the data, and we'll be using this panel here to make this all happen. So I've got a function already set up, so it's the pond interface in there. I'm saying that we're going to use a cut slope of 1 and 2.5, fill slope of 1 and 2.5, section separation of 5 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter. Obviously, the closer your section separation is, the more accurate your data is. We're going to go and interface this back to our survey tin. I've gone and told it that the internal strings model is this set in here, which you spoke about, the orange and off yellow, and that we're going to make some new strings which are going to be interface of the ponds, and a new tin name which is going to be tin pond. We can come back in a moment and put in a height increment in here, and we've also got the ability to use overflow. Now Peter Tainton has actually shown the overflow level in a previous video, so I'm not going to bother here. The view that we want to see this happen in is going to be the current view, which is our ponds view, and we'll have a report file. We'll just give it pond vols. The reference string over here is the external string there. I'll just go and add on my contours through here. So that's basically what we're going to be matching that data into. Process. That's gone through and it's run my initial data set through and given me an interface with cut and fill. We're in a little gully in here, cutting up there, cutting through here, and of course underneath this panel here filling. So the idea is that I've then got a volume that I can go and have a look at and say I'm happy with that volume or not. If I wanted to adjust this data, then I can probably go and say, well, I want to have a height increment in there, and I'll go of 0.05. That's going to lift the whole data set up. Hit process, run through, lifted that up for me, given me a different amount. I'm just going to keep going with this, just showing you that it's working. I'm not looking for a particular volume to happen anywhere along the line, but you can see that that's basically going through and adjusting that each time that I go and use it. So again, the idea with this is that it's gone and moved all of my orange strings and my yellow strings, kept them in the same relationship to one another. It's used this external string here as my interface string to go and find out where to do my cut and fill, and so just a different variation on using some of the lot pads and dynamic pad pond tools. Back over here in my long sections and cross sections, there are my relative strings for my ponds going through there, and on the cross sections as well, similar things. So these were the design strings that we were using to float up and down. Back into our plan view there. That basically finishes the session that we've got on lot pads outside the box. As I said, we've also thrown in the dynamic pad pond, and I hope you'll find some of these tools and ideas useful, and you can use them for yourselves on various jobs. Again, back to my very first words, 12D is just a toolbox that you can go and choose whatever tools you want to do whatever job. Some people may go and use one tool, some may use another. Hopefully those things will be helpful for you. Thanks very much. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Alistair. The recording of this webinar will be available in coming days through our website and our YouTube channel. We've got some more exciting webinar topics coming up throughout 2019 in both series, so keep an eye on our emails and social media for details. If you need to contact us in the meantime, our details are on the screen now. That concludes our presentation for today. Thank you for attending, and we hope to see you at future webinars.